Hey everyone, my name is Max, and this is the weekly comic review for June 18th in the year of our Lord 2025. Now, unfortunately, I only got the chance to read about 8 comics this week, but before we jump into my individual reviews for each and every one, kind of breaking down which ones I would highly recommend picking up, and those that I would, recommend skipping out on, I have to start out strong with this week's undisputed champion, the comic that actually exceeded my expectations, and that is Invincible Universe's Battle Beast issue number 2. Robert Kirkman and Ryan Ottley continue to deliver an exhilarating cosmic adventure with Invincible Universe Battle Beast number 2 from Skybound and Image Comics. Following his monumental victory against the Colossus in the previous issue, Battle Beast, accompanied by his sentient ship and Prince Salaka, embarks on a relentless quest for his next formidable challenge. Their pursuit leads them directly into the heart of the Blood Games, a gladiatorial arena designed for brutal combat. Battle Beast effortlessly dismantles his adversaries, showcasing a level of power that is unthinkable. But there is one opposition that may indeed be capable of halting his rampage and quest for the next worthy adversary. So what really struck me, as always, is the art in this issue. Ryan Ottley's work in this series is, in my humble opinion, some of the best in the industry right now, and this issue might just be his most impressive yet. Every single panel feels meticulously crafted and bursting with detail. His sharp line work and the masterful inking really highlight the incredible intricacy he puts into each character and environment. And the colors, they absolutely pop and explode off the page, perfectly complementing each character and making every set piece feel alive and vibrant. It's truly a feast for the eyes. I also really like the character dynamics, brief as they are. Battle Beast is so singularly focused on his own relentless pursuit of worthy opponents, and it is genuinely entertaining to see how the other characters, especially Prince Salaka, have to strategically appeal to that core motivation to get him to just do anything to go along with their plans. It creates this really hilarious push and pull that keeps the story feeling fresh and engaging. And these fight scenes, they are so unique and creatively staged. There's one moment that's absolutely burned into my mind where Battle Beast is actually standing on his own sword and it's slashing down the front of an alien monster. So he's using his body weight to tear the creature in half. It's such a ridiculous, metal and unforgettable visual that perfectly encapsulates the raw power and inventiveness of the combat here. Honestly, everyone involved in this book is just firing on all cylinders. Kirkman and Ottley are truly masters at their craft, consistently delivering such an exciting and thoroughly enjoyable piece of entertainment every single month. I find myself genuinely impressed with every new issue, and this one is certainly no exception, and maybe actually better than the first issue, if it's even possible. All that being said, highest of recommendations for me this week. Next up, we've got Weapon X-Men number 5 by Joe Casey and Chris Cross. After a near-death experience left him hospitalized, John Proudstar, aka Thunderbird, has gone MIA. But what could have taken him off the board? It's now up to the remaining teammates of the newly named Weapon X-Men, Wolverine, Cable, Deadpool, and Chamber, to find their missing 5th member before he's hurt, killed, or worst of all, destroys the team before it even began. So it truly pains me to be writing this review for Weapon X number 5 because it means that we've actually reached the unfortunate conclusion of this series. And honestly, it is a total shame. When you look at some of the other X books on the shelves right now, and I'm looking at you, Exceptional X-Men and Uncanny X-Men, Weapon X-Men felt like a breath of fresh air, a genuinely better offering in comparison to all of those. Its early cancellation really stings here. What makes it even worse and more frustrating for me is the context around this title. I feel for Joe Casey immensely because Weapon X-Men was a concept he had actually pitched to Marvel years ago, only for them to take the name and use it and appropriate it for a far worse, utterly forgettable miniseries starring multiversal Wolverines against Onslaught. So not only was Casey's original title essentially co-opted, but this current Weapon X-Men series almost felt doomed from the start. I remember also how its first issue was billed as a tie-in to the One World Under Doom event. For many readers, I imagine that instantly signaled, oh, well, I don't really need to pick this up unless I'm following the event. So it robbed it of its own independent identity. With all that baggage, I truly wish Marvel had given the series a longer leash, because I believe it had so much more potential to do incredibly fun and interesting things with its fantastic cast of characters. Now, getting to the actual comic itself, this final issue was absolutely a blast. And what I loved the most about it was how it felt like such a perfect callback to classic X-Men, particularly echoing the vibes of X-Men number 95 from 1975, but with a fantastic shot of 90s flair added in for good measure. The art throughout this series, and certainly in this final issue, is so fun and impactful. The visuals really pop and the colors are simply gorgeous. They genuinely make the pages explode. Beyond the aesthetics, the team dynamic and chemistry between the characters are undeniably off the charts as well. This has been such a consistently enjoyable and well-paced series for me, and I can already tell it's going to read like one thrilling ride when I get my hands on the trade paperback. So, despite its brevity and the unfortunate circumstances surrounding its run, Weapon X-Men truly delivered a refreshing and engaging experience, and I wholeheartedly recommend picking up this series. You will not regret it. Next up, we've got G.I. Joe number 8 by Joshua Williamson and Andrea Milana. Major Blood is back for revenge against the woman who took his eye, the Baroness. Now Baroness must decide if protecting herself means staying with G.I. Joe. This latest issue kicks off a new arc, and I found it to be a fairly solid start. The dialogue hints that the full G.I. Joe and Transformer conflict isn't quite front and center yet, but the underlying associations are certainly there. It was a fun setup, spotlighting the ladies of the team, Baroness and CoverGirl, and while enjoyable, it didn't really feel like anything outstanding or groundbreaking. Yet it balanced character building with subtlety, moving the larger plot forward. I particularly love the natural interactions like those between Duke and Clutch. Joshua Williamson's knack for authentic, spot-on dialogue is a real highlight for me. The art is simple but effective, with the colors truly accentuating the tone and vibe of every scene, adding a lot to the visuals. Skybound's commitment to consistent quality across all their comics is actually genuinely impressive. While this issue wasn't the most thrilling, it's still consistently better written, illustrated, and produced than many other titles that are out there right now. That reliable quality always keeps me coming back. So even though I may not recommend this specific issue for a new reader that's coming on to the G.I. Joe series currently at Skybound, I'd probably recommend them to go back to issue 1 to get caught up with where we're at now. So ultimately, for the readers who are currently sticking with the series, I'd say it's a recommend to understand what's going to be going on with the next arc, but overall, fun issue, nothing to write home about though. Next up, we've got Aliens vs. Avengers, issue number 4 by Jonathan Hickman and Esad Ribic. This is the finale, an epic conclusion to this 4-issue miniseries. The sinister plot is revealed. Earth's mightiest heroes abandon their home planet to save humanity from the xenomorph threat. Now, they've arrived on Mars, current refuge of the X-Men, but the twisted machinations of Mr. Sinister might spell doom for them all. I have got to start by saying one of my biggest frustrations with this series has undeniably been its release schedule. While I completely understand and absolutely love the incredible detail in Esad Ribić's art, and believe me, it is totally worth it, having just 4 issues spread out over an entire year was really disappointing. It's a huge hurdle for maintaining momentum and goodwill, no matter how good the book is. Now, when I first heard about the title, I honestly braced myself for what I thought might be just another gimmicky crossover. But I was actually pleasantly surprised. The creative team, against my initial expectations, has woven together a legitimately good, interesting, and deeply engaging story. The way the plot unfolds is truly terrifying, building massive stakes that genuinely invested me as a reader. And speaking of the creative team, let's start with Ribić's art. It is just as breathtaking as I hoped. His work on Jason Aaron's Thor run is still one of my favorite comic art, period. And thankfully, he's absolutely still got it here. There were moments in this issue where my jaw actually dropped. Some pages felt less like comic panels and more like meticulously crafted paintings. Ribić is without question a master artist, and his visuals alone are a huge draw to this series. Jonathan Hickman's dark and gritty writing style also fits this kind of cosmic crossover perfectly, giving it a serious, impactful tone. What impressed me most was how seamlessly he pulled everything together in just 4 issues. Hickman usually thrives on those big, slow builds across long arcs, but here he dropped us into this wild mix of aliens and Avengers and made it all work without a single wasted moment. That is no easy feat for any writer, and I really enjoyed it. So if you're like me and you love the Avengers, enjoy unique Elseworld stories, and have a soft spot for compelling sci-fi, I genuinely think you will enjoy the series. But a quick note on the price. These individual issues are a hefty $8. $8. So my honest advice, truly, do yourself a favor and wait for the trade paperback or collected edition. There is really no need to spend over $32 on just 4 issues of a miniseries, especially considering the spaced out, release schedule. You'll get the same incredible story and art without the financial sting if you wait for the trade. Now, to talk about a crossover that didn't work well for me at all, let's move over to Godzilla vs. Avengers #1 by David F. Walker and Jorge Janti? I'm not sure how to pronounce it. The original New Avengers return to face an unstoppable enemy, Godzilla. In the aftermath of a massive battle between Godzilla, Fin Fang Foom, the Avengers, and Jet Jaguar, S.H.I.E.L.D. tries to make sense of what went down, but everyone's telling a different story. What really happened during the fateful clash? Find out when Earth's mightiest heroes take on Earth's mightiest kaiju. I have to admit, I've never quite understood the appeal of these large-scale Godzilla crossover books. My experience with past attempts like Spider-Man versus Godzilla left me utterly apathetic, and I found it abysmal. Unfortunately, this latest issue did not change my mind at all. So, my core frustration with these types of stories often lies in their apparent unwillingness to take themselves seriously, and this issue leans heavily into that thread with a kind of jokey approach that I simply just can't connect with. Now, I do understand that with a book like this, not everything needs to be like a serious Oscar-worthy performance, but I mean, come on, if you're not going to take the material seriously, I at least hope to have some fun while reading these stories, and I can't even do that. For me, one of the biggest disappointments was the character work. None of the Avengers characters felt like they had a distinct voice, and the dialogue overall just seemed generic and totally uninspired. It made it incredibly difficult for me to invest in any of their interactions. Beyond that, I found the plot itself to be pretty flimsy, and the jokes were awful. I mean, even worse, and they rarely landed for me. What felt like a particularly egregious misstep, especially for a crossover, is that Godzilla's presence felt almost entirely inconsequential. You could swap him out for nearly any other large monster and the story would have wouldn't have fundamentally changed at all. If I'm really digging deep to find a positive, I suppose I can say that the art was fine. It didn't do anything particularly wrong, but it certainly didn't elevate the material for me either. My reading experience, to be blunt, quickly became one of simply just trying to get it over with. The pacing felt bizarrely rushed, almost frenetic, yet there was no real sense of stakes or clear direction. Godzilla, despite being the star, never truly felt like a threat to me. The narrative choice to consistently and constantly cut between the present and the central event felt like a wasted effort, consuming pages with just fluff. Ultimately, it detracted from what little potential the concept might have held, and this is definitely not a recommendation for me this week. But let's shift gears to something that I actually really enjoyed this week. Let's go to Krypto, the Last Dog of Krypton, issue number 1 by Ryan North and Mike Norton. There will come a day when Krypto stands beside Superman, helping him fight off monsters, aliens, and supervillains. A day when this dog will save his adoptive world thanks to the incredible powers granted him by Earth's strange yellow sun. But he's not there yet. Today, Krypto is a normal puppy on Krypton, spending each happy, snoozy, endless day alongside his family, Jor-El, Lara, and baby Kal-El. But when a rocket test goes wrong, Krypto finds himself lost in space, and soon crash landing all alone on a strange and alien world called Earth. I picked this one up with fairly modest expectations. Sometimes books tied to major movie releases can feel a bit obligatory, but to my genuine surprise, this book proved to be pretty solid and a really charming read. While it's clear DC is most definitely leveraging this for the upcoming Superman film, this comic doesn't feel like it just rides on coattails. One of the first things that truly captured my attention was the clever approach to the dialogue. Most of the speech bubbles are rendered in a soft gray, which is subtle enough that you might not notice it at first. But then, whenever characters utter specific words like Krypto, breakfast, or good boy, the text snaps into bold black. It's such an ingenious, visual trick, immediately putting you into Krypto's unique perspective and highlighting the words he truly understands. It's a small detail that adds a ton of personality to the narrative that I just really enjoyed. And speaking of personality, Mike Norton's illustrations are phenomenal. He perfectly captures Krypto's undeniable cuteness, making him incredibly expressive and relatable. Norton truly has a knack for conveying emotion through Krypto's eyes and body language, which I think adds so much heart to this story. There's a scene where Krypto snuggles up next to a sleeping baby Kal-El, and I guarantee you it will melt your heart into a puddle. I initially went into this thinking it was a standalone one-shot, but it's actually the beginning of a miniseries. While it certainly delivers on the cute and fun promise, what really blew me away was the unexpected depth and warmth it managed to convey. The ending in particular was a genuine shocker, so I am actually interested to see how the rest of this story unfolds. So if you're looking for something genuinely heartwarming with a surprising amount of emotional resonance, I would definitely recommend this one. Next up, we've got Bring On the Bad Guys, Doom, issue number 1 by Mark Guggenheim and Stefano Raffaele. The book starts with one of Dr. Doom's informants telling him about a new threat, Sister Sorrow. She's apparently on a global hunt for soul daggers, with the ominous goal of igniting the Soul Forge. And as you can imagine, this does not sit well with our favorite Latverian villain. The comic plays with its pacing quite a bit, jumping back and forth between the present-day clashes between Doom and Sister Sorrow as they battle for these daggers, and extensive flashbacks that flesh out the intricate lore of how the Soul Forge came to be. I'll admit that this non-linear approach did make the pacing feel a little disjointed at times, but I was still able to gather all the crucial information without ever feeling completely lost. Through these reveals, the stakes become clear that Sister Sorrow is actually working for Mephisto, and if he gets his hands on all those daggers and rekindles the Soul Forge, he'll essentially gain control over every single soul on Earth. From an artistic standpoint, there are some truly stunning pages in this issue. You can tell there's a real talent at work here. The characters are consistently and beautifully illustrated with a level of detail and clear intent behind every stroke that I legitimately appreciated. Mephisto especially looks incredibly menacing with Sinister. Stefano Raphael really nails his appearance, and honestly, his artwork does a lot of the heavy lifting in making this book engaging. However, where the book didn't quite land for me was in its core storytelling. The story, plot, and characters outside of the art felt a bit bland. They were just perfectly serviceable, competent even, but I just didn't really find anything that truly wowed me or resonated deeply. It was a perfectly adequate narrative experience, but nothing that truly soared. Now, this is part of a 7-comic series focusing on different villains, which does have me intrigued to see how they plan to weave all these individual villain stories into a cohesive, larger narrative. While this first issue was, in my honest opinion, just kind of fine, maybe a little on the mediocre side, that overarching mystery is enough to make me want to come pick up the next one and see where it goes. So, meh. And finally, we have Wonder Woman issue number 22 by Tom King and Caitlin Yarsky. As the stage is set for our next tale, Diana tells her daughter the story of one of their greatest adventures together. The maniacal Mouseman debuts looking to prove himself against the Amazon princess and severely underestimates how powerful she and her allies truly are. Could his humiliating defeat have repercussions for Diana in the future? I don't even know what to say about this comic other than it feels like a complete mess. And I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up being one of the worst reads of the year for me. I find myself completely at a loss, trying to discern what exactly Tom King is aiming for here. It feels like everything is just totally off. The characters are poorly realized, the pacing is jarringly uneven, and the tone shifts so wildly, it's disorienting, and the art frankly leaves a ton to be desired. From the very beginning, I was left scratching my head. One of the initial scenes features mice that have somehow taken over the Capitol building. It comes across as a rather heavy-handed, almost clumsy attempt at some form of political commentary, maybe on the events of January 6th, but it just doesn't land. And then Wonder Woman herself starts squeaking to communicate with the mice. I'm like, okay, what the hell is happening right now? It totally and just completely pulled me out of the story almost immediately. However, the most significant point of contention for me is the egregious portrayal of Steve Trevor. He's depicted as a pathetic shadow of his former self, constantly groveling, whining, and offering what feels like forced affirmations to Diana. To me, it's a pathetic and frankly emasculating depiction that actively undermines his character. Not only is he written this way, but he's even illustrated as this weak, fragile figure which only compounds the issue. I hate it when a character like Steve, with his established history and strength, is so overtly weakened in an apparent embarrassing attempt to artificially elevate a female lead like Diana, who, regrettably, isn't even particularly well written in this context either. It feels like a profoundly misguided and honestly pitiful attempt at character work. And as someone who's been covering this particular Wonder Woman series on my live streams and other recorded videos since issue 1, I can unfortunately say that, in my view, the series has only continued to get worse. If you're looking for a truly great Wonder Woman comic that respects her legacy and character, I wholeheartedly urge you to look no further than the phenomenal run by William Messner Loebs. But as for this current Tom King iteration, I cannot and will not, in good faith, ever recommend it. Well, that does it for this week's comic reviews. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I hope that this helped you sort out your pull list. You know, my goal is to always help you navigate the ever-expanding world of comic books. So let me know in the comments section below which ones you ended up picking up and which ones you enjoyed and which ones you didn't. Until next time, keep reading, keep collecting, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Thanks again.